Zixtal's four hands moved quickly across the control panel as more reports flooded into the Galactic Council's monitoring station. The blue-skinned aliens' inner eyelids blinked rapidly, a sign of growing concern among their species. Something was different about today's data from the third planet of the Sol system. "Council member, you need to see this," called out one of the junior observers, their voice trembling slightly. Zixtal glided across the room on their gravity cushion, approaching the large display screen. The numbers didn't make sense. They couldn't make sense. According to the data, the humans had just achieved in 50 years what took most species 500 years to accomplish. The development curve was nearly vertical. "Run the calculations again," Zixtal ordered, but they already knew the results would be the same. The humans were advancing too fast, impossibly fast. Meanwhile, on Earth's moon, Christopher Bennett stood at the window of Lunar Base Alpha, staring at the blue marble that was Earth. His coffee had gone cold hours ago, forgotten after the strange energy readings began appearing on their instruments. "Chris, you need to see these new readings," called out his colleague, Dr. Karen Miller. Her voice carried the kind of excitement that only came with major discoveries. "The signal patterns, they're not random. They're not natural." Chris hurried to her station, nearly spilling his cold coffee. The screen showed energy spikes coming from the direction of Mars, patterns too regular to be anything but artificial. After 20 years of searching the stars for signs of intelligent life, they weren't just finding signals, they were finding them in their own backyard. "Have you told anyone else?" he asked, his heart racing. Karen shook her head. "Just you. I wanted to be sure first." On Mars, senior observer Kralfax was facing a crisis. Their observation post, hidden beneath the red planet's surface for the past 300 years, had maintained perfect secrecy. Until now. Their energy dampeners had failed for exactly 3.2 seconds during routine maintenance, and that had been enough. The humans, with their primitive but surprisingly effective instruments, had detected something. "Report status," came the command from the Galactic Council through their quantum communicator. Kralfax's tentacles writhed in distress as they responded. "The humans have detected our energy signature. Based on their current technological level, they will be able to determine our exact location within 48 Earth hours." The silence that followed lasted exactly 15 seconds. "Initiate first contact protocols," the Council ordered. "We can no longer maintain observation status." Back on the moon, Chris and Karen had been joined by the rest of their team. The base's small conference room was packed with scientists, all talking at once. The energy readings had grown stronger, and now they were picking up what seemed to be some kind of communication signals. "Everyone, quiet please," Chris called out, standing at the head of the table. "What we're seeing here could be the most important discovery in human history. We need to handle this carefully." Dr. Tim Russell, their communication specialist, raised his hand. "I've been analyzing the signal patterns. They're definitely artificial, and they're becoming more regular, almost like they're trying to get our attention now." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. At that moment, in the Galactic Council's emergency session, Zixtal was making an unprecedented recommendation. "We must approach them openly. The humans have already shown remarkable ability to reverse engineer any technology they encounter. If they find our observation post with no explanation, they might react unpredictably." The council members murmured among themselves. Humans were known for their unpredictability, a trait that made many species nervous. Their historical records showed countless examples of humans achieving the impossible simply because they didn't know it was impossible. "Agreed," said the council leader. "Prepare the first contact team, and may the stars help us all." The next 24 hours changed everything. As Chris and his team worked frantically to understand the increasing signals from Mars, the alien observation post was preparing to reveal itself. Kralfax's team removed their camouflage systems, allowing their base to become visible to human instruments. The first images from Earth's Mars rovers showed a structure that hadn't been there before. a gleaming silver building that seemed to grow right out of the Martian soil. The internet exploded with theories. Governments went into emergency sessions, and military forces worldwide went on high alert. Chris stared at the images, his hand shaking slightly. "They've been here all along," he whispered, "watching us." Karen nodded, her eyes glued to the screen. But why reveal themselves now? Their answer came 3 hours later, when every screen on Earth and the lunar base suddenly displayed the same message, written in perfect English and every other human language. "People of Earth, we come in peace. We are the Galactic Council, and we have been observing your development. The time has come for first contact. Please respond." In the Council observation post, Zixtal reviewed the humans' initial reactions. Unlike other species who typically responded with fear or religious awe, the humans' primary reaction seemed to be curiosity. And something else that made Zixtal's inner eyelids blink rapidly again: excitement. "They're treating this like an adventure," Kralfax noted, their tentacles waving in confusion. "Most species would be terrified." "That," Zixtal responded gravely, "is exactly what worries me." As Earth's governments scrambled to form a unified response team, Chris and his lunar base colleagues found themselves at the center of it all. Their base was chosen as the neutral meeting point for first contact, being away from Earth, but close enough for comfort. Chris stood in the newly prepared meeting room, adjusting his tie nervously. Karen and Tim stood beside him, along with representatives from Earth's major nations. They all waited, watching the airlock door. The door cycled open, and Earth's first official alien visitors entered. Zixtal led the delegation, their blue skin gleaming under the lights, all 4 hands raised in a peaceful gesture. Behind them came Kralfax, tentacles carefully controlled, and several other council representatives. As Chris stepped forward to make humanity's first official greeting to alien life, he had no way of knowing that the aliens were more nervous than the humans. No way of knowing that while humanity was looking up at the stars with hope and excitement, the galaxy was looking back at Earth with growing concern. The day that would change humanity's future had arrived, but it would also mark the beginning of the galaxy's fear of the strange, resilient, and terrifyingly adaptable species from the third planet. Behind their diplomatic smiles and peaceful gestures, the council members shared a worried thought. What had they just unleashed upon the galaxy? 3 weeks after first contact, Amanda Nash stood before the Galactic Council's assessment team in the lunar base's main conference room. As Earth's chosen diplomatic representative, she had spent countless hours preparing for this moment. The 7 alien representatives sat across from her, their varied forms a testament to the diversity of life in the galaxy. "Please explain," began Zixtal, gesturing with their upper right hand, "how humans achieved spaceflight without outside assistance." Amanda smiled, pulling up images on the room's main display. "We simply looked up at the stars and decided to reach them." The aliens exchanged glances, their expressions unreadable to human eyes. A tall, crystalline being called Vexthor leaned forward, light refracting through their transparent form. But without guidance, without the traditional 1,000 years of preparation. "We did it in less than 70 years, Amanda replied, showing footage of the first moon landing. "From our first powered flight to walking on the moon." The room fell silent. Finally, Dr. Peter Wright, Earth's leading expert on the new field of xenobiology, stepped forward to continue the presentation. His casual confidence made several council members shift uncomfortably in their gravity-adjusted seats. "Our development wasn't linear," Peter explained, pulling up a timeline. "We tend to advance in bursts, especially during times of conflict or competition." The alien representatives' universal translation devices worked overtime as Peter showed them humanity's technological progression. From steam engines to nuclear power, from horses to supersonic aircraft, from simple calculators to quantum computers, each leap forward happened faster than the last. Kralfax's tentacles curled in agitation. "This rate of advancement, it's unprecedented. Most species take time to adapt to each new technology level." Humans are very good at adapting, Amanda said proudly, not noticing how the aliens flinched at the word adapting. We see a problem. We solve it. Then we improve the solution. Peter pulled up new data, showing human survival statistics. We've faced several near-extinction events in our history, he explained. Each time, we not only survived but came back stronger. A gaseous being named Mistral floated forward, their cloudy form swirling with concern. You speak of extinction events casually, as if they were minor inconveniences. Well, they taught us valuable lessons, Peter replied with a shrug. The Ice Age taught us to use tools and fire. The Great Plagues led to advances in medicine. World Wars pushed us to develop new technologies. The aliens' translation devices struggled to convey the concept that humans viewed catastrophes as learning opportunities. Amanda noticed their discomfort and quickly moved the presentation forward. Let's discuss our current technological capabilities, she suggested, but was interrupted by Zixtal. First, explain how your species maintains unity despite ongoing conflicts, the council member requested. Our records show you developed spaceflight while still fighting among yourselves. Amanda and Peter exchanged glances. Well, yes, Amanda admitted. Competition is part of our nature. It drives us to improve. You reached the stars while at war. Vexthor's crystalline form flickered with disbelief. Without achieving planetary peace first. Sometimes the competition helped, Peter added, showing images of early space programs. Each side wanted to reach space first, so we all worked harder. The council members huddled together, speaking in low tones their translators didn't catch. When they turned back, their expressions were even more serious than before. We have observed, Zixtal stated carefully, that humans continue to advance in multiple directions simultaneously, even in times of conflict. This is unusual. Is it? Amanda asked, genuinely surprised. How do other species do it? They don't, Mistral replied, their gaseous form condensing slightly. Most species focus all resources on one advancement at a time, especially during conflicts. Peter pulled up more data, this time showing parallel developments in different fields. Humans are good at multitasking, he explained. While we were developing spaceflight, we also made advances in medicine, computing, agriculture, and dozens of other fields. The aliens' reaction to this simple statement was unexpected. Several of them moved back slightly in their seats, while others made gestures that their human hosts didn't recognize as signs of deep concern. And your species did this, naturally. Kralthax asked, their tentacles now completely still, a sign of severe stress that the humans couldn't interpret. Of course, Amanda replied. How else would we do it? The assessment continued for hours. The council members asked increasingly detailed questions about human history, development, and capabilities. They seemed particularly interested in humanity's ability to survive catastrophes and adapt to new situations. Near the end of the session, Zixtal asked one final question. Do humans ever feel limited by what others say is impossible? Amanda laughed, not realizing how the sound made the aliens tense up. We have a saying. Impossible just means no one's done it yet. After the humans left the room, the council members remained, their various forms huddled in deep discussion. Zixtal's inner eyelids hadn't stopped blinking rapidly for hours. They don't know, Mistral observed, their gaseous form swirling anxiously. Don't know what? Asked Vexthor. That what they've achieved shouldn't be possible, Kralthax answered, their tentacles writhing. They don't know that reaching space while still fighting wars is unheard of. They don't know that developing multiple technologies simultaneously should be impossible. They don't know their own planet should be too hostile to develop advanced life, Zixtal added quietly. They don't know they're living in conditions that would kill most species in the galaxy. The council members sat in silence, processing this revelation. Finally, Mistral spoke what they were all thinking. If they can achieve so much without even knowing it should be impossible, what will they do now that they know about the rest of the galaxy? None of them had an answer, but they all shared the same unspoken fear. The species from the third planet had already proven to be unlike anything they had encountered before, and they were just getting started. Linda Carter didn't mean to scare the aliens. As a human anthropologist working with the Galactic Council's research team, her job was simply to explain human behavior patterns. But every presentation she gave seemed to make the aliens more nervous. "And this is what humans call a hobby," Linda explained, showing images on the screen. "Activities we do for fun in our free time." The alien observers watched in silence as she showed people rock climbing, scuba diving, and skydiving. Zixtal's blue skin had turned several shades paler. "You deliberately put yourselves in danger for entertainment?" asked Kralfax, their tentacles curling tightly around their datapad. "Well, these are extreme sports," Linda explained. "Most hobbies are much safer, like gardening or painting. But why do these extreme sports exist at all?" Vexthor's crystalline form flickered with confusion. Before Linda could answer, Dr. Frank Cooper from the Military Research Division walked into the room. He carried a large box of old training equipment, planning to explain human defensive capabilities to the Council. "Sorry I'm late," Frank said, putting the box down. "I was teaching some of our alien friends about hand-to-hand combat training." The Council members shifted uncomfortably. Mistral's gaseous form condensed noticeably as they asked, "Why do humans still practice primitive combat when you have advanced weapons?" Frank looked surprised by the question. "Because anything can fail. A gun can run out of bullets. A laser can run out of power, but your fists don't run out of fists." Linda noticed how the aliens reacted to this statement. Their universal translators couldn't quite capture the human idiom, but they understood the meaning well enough. She quickly tried to change the subject. "Let's talk about human adaptation to different environments," she suggested, not realizing this topic would worry them even more. She showed images of human settlements around the world, cities in the desert, research stations in Antarctica, villages in the mountains, and underwater research facilities. Humans can live almost anywhere with the right preparation. "Without environmental suits?" Zixtal asked, their four hands moving nervously over their control panel. "Usually, yes," Linda replied. "We use buildings and clothing to help, but humans can survive in a wide range of temperatures and conditions." The aliens exchanged those meaningful looks again. The ones Linda had learned meant they were deeply troubled by something. She continued her presentation, unaware that each new fact about humanity was adding to their concern. "Humans also adapt quickly to new situations," she explained, showing how people had adjusted to life in space. "Our bodies can learn to handle different gravity levels, and our minds can learn new skills rapidly." A new alien observer, a tree-like being named Rutal, raised a branch-like appendage. "Our records show humans invented spacesuits because they wanted to explore space, not because they needed the technology first. Is this correct?" "Of course," Frank chimed in. "We see something we want to do. We figure out how to do it. Why wait?" "But the void of space is lethal," Rutal said slowly. "Most species develop space travel only after they have perfected environmental protection." Frank shrugged. "We knew space was dangerous. We made suits that could handle it. Then we went." Linda noticed how Rutal's leaves trembled at this casual description of facing lethal conditions. She decided to move on to something less dramatic: human emergency response systems. "Here's how humans handle crisis situations," she began, showing footage of natural disaster responses. "We have teams trained to run into dangerous situations to help others." "Run into danger?" Kralfax's translator crackled with disbelief. "Deliberately?" "Well, yes," Linda said. "Firefighters, rescue workers, emergency medical teams, they all go towards danger to help people." The aliens watched in silence as she showed clips of firefighters entering burning buildings, rescue helicopters flying into storms, and medical teams working in disaster zones. Their reactions ranged from disbelief to what Linda was starting to recognize as fear. Later that day, In a private council session, the aliens discussed their observations. Linda and Frank weren't present to hear their worried conversations. They seek out challenge and danger, Mistral noted, their gaseous form swirling agitatedly. Not for survival, but for fun. They train to fight without weapons, Kralfax added, just in case their advanced weapons fail. Who thinks like that? Humans do, Zixtal said quietly. They prepare for every possibility, even ones that seem impossible. Rutel's leaves rustled nervously. Did you see their entertainment? They imagine scenarios worse than their already deadly planet, and then pretend to survive them. They call it fiction. Speaking of their planet, Vexthor's crystalline form pulsed with concern. Most of their world would be lethal to 90% of known species. Yet they call it perfect for life. The council members fell silent, contemplating this. Finally, Zixtal spoke what they were all thinking. They don't just survive in conditions that would kill most species. They thrive in them. They seek out new challenges. They deliberately practice for worst-case scenarios. And now, Kralfax added, their tentacles waving in distress, they know they're not alone in the galaxy. They know there's more out there to explore. To adapt to, Mistral corrected. To challenge themselves against, Rutal added. They all knew what this meant. Humans weren't just unusual, they were potentially dangerous in ways no other species had ever been. Not because they were hostile, but because they were relentlessly adaptable, incredibly resilient, and seemingly fearless. Meanwhile, Linda was preparing her next presentation on human music and art, completely unaware that her simple explanations of normal human behavior were causing such concern among the galactic community. And Frank was happily planning a demonstration of human sports, not realizing that showing aliens how humans played games would only increase their worries. The warning signs were clear to the council, but the humans couldn't see them. After all, how could they understand that what they considered normal was terrifying to the rest of the galaxy? No one expected the cultural exchange program to go wrong so quickly. The Galactic Council had arranged for their representatives to experience various human activities, hoping to better understand Earth's inhabitants. That's how Richard Cole found himself trying to explain boxing to a group of increasingly disturbed aliens. So let me understand this correctly, Zixtal said, all four hands gesturing in confusion. These humans are voluntarily hitting each other. It's a sport, Richard explained, pointing to the boxing ring where two fighters were sparring. They're wearing protective gear, and there are rules. The aliens watched in horror as the boxers exchanged punches. Kralfax's tentacles had wrapped themselves so tightly around their chair that the metal was starting to bend. They're causing physical damage to each other for entertainment. Vexthor's crystalline form flickered rapidly, a sign of extreme distress. Before Richard could respond, one boxer landed a solid hit, and the other bounced back from the ropes to continue fighting. The aliens collectively moved away from the ring, their universal translators working overtime to process their shocked exclamations. He's injured. Why isn't he stopping? Mistral's gaseous form swirled in agitation. He's fine, Richard assured them. Humans can take a lot more damage than that. This statement, meant to be reassuring, only made things worse. The aliens huddled together, speaking rapidly in their own languages. Richard couldn't understand them, but he recognized fear when he saw it. Later that week, during a routine environmental test, something went wrong with the air filtration system in the lunar base's alien sector. The atmosphere began to shift to Earth-normal conditions, which were potentially lethal for most of the alien species. Richard was in the sector when it happened, discussing security protocols with Zixtal. The alarm sounded, and the emergency lights began flashing. Environmental system failure, the computer announced. Sector returning to Earth-normal conditions. The aliens panicked. Earth's atmosphere was like poison to them, and their environmental suits were in another room. Richard looked at the terror in their eyes and made a quick decision. "Follow me," he shouted, leading them through the corridors. He felt the air getting thicker, becoming more like Earth's atmosphere. The aliens were slowing down, struggling to move. Without hesitation, Richard began carrying them one by one to the emergency shelter. He ignored the burning in his lungs from the exertion, ignored the strain on his muscles. 4 trips he made, each time emerging into the increasingly Earth-like atmosphere that was heaven for him but poison for his alien colleagues. When emergency teams finally arrived, they found Richard sitting outside the shelter, breathing heavily but alive. He had saved 4 alien council members from conditions that would have killed them in minutes. The alien medical team was baffled. "You underwent extreme physical exertion in shifting atmospheric conditions," one of them stated, checking Richard's vital signs. "Why aren't you more severely affected?" Richard shrugged. "Humans are pretty tough. We bounce back quickly." The medical team exchanged worried looks. Their instruments showed that Richard's body was already beginning to recover, adapting to the strain he had put it under. This kind of rapid recovery was unheard of among other species. The incident led to another discovery that disturbed the aliens even more. During Richard's medical examination, they found old injuries that had healed, broken bones, scar tissue, evidence of past damage that his body had simply repaired. "Your bones show multiple stress fractures that have healed," the chief medical officer noted. "How is this possible?" "Oh, those are from my time in the military," Richard explained. "Basic training was tough, but you get stronger." The alien doctor's appendages trembled as they made notes. "You deliberately underwent training that caused physical damage to become stronger." "Well, yeah," Richard said. "That's how humans work. We adapt to challenges. What doesn't kill us makes us stronger." The doctor had to take a break after hearing this, their species' equivalent of going pale clearly visible. During the following council session, the aliens discussed what they had learned. Their voices were hushed, their movements anxious. "They don't just survive damage," Kralfax said, their tentacles moving in agitated patterns. "They get stronger from it. And they do it on purpose," Vexthor added, their crystalline form dulled with worry. "They deliberately subject themselves to stress and damage to improve their capabilities." Zixtal, who had been saved by Richard, spoke quietly. "He carried us to safety through an atmosphere that was killing us. His body was under extreme stress, and he simply continued." "The medical scans are even more concerning," the chief medical officer reported. "Their bodies don't just heal damage, they build stronger repairs. Each injury makes them more resilient." The council members sat in silence, processing this information. Then Mistral spoke up, their gaseous form barely holding shape from anxiety. "We need to discuss their history of warfare," they said. "If individuals are this resilient, what about their species as a whole?" The reports that followed only increased their concern. Humans had fought countless wars, survived multiple near-extinction events, and faced disasters that would have wiped out most species. Yet they had not only survived but had grown stronger, more adaptable, more resilient. "They have a saying," Zixtal noted, reading from their cultural database. "What doesn't kill us makes us stronger." We thought it was just words, but it's literally true for them. "And now they're here, in space," Kralfax added. "Meeting new species, facing new challenges. Getting stronger," Vexthor finished. Meanwhile, Richard had returned to his regular duties, completely unaware of the worry he had caused. To him, carrying the aliens to safety had been the obvious thing to do. The fact that he had survived conditions that would kill most species didn't seem remarkable to him at all. And that perhaps was what scared the aliens most of all. Humans didn't just do the impossible. They did it without realizing it was supposed to be impossible. Susan Martinez stood before the Galactic Council, ready to give her presentation on human hunting and survival techniques. As a lead researcher in human evolution, she didn't expect her talk to cause much concern. She was wrong. Humans did what? Zixtal's inner eyelids blinked rapidly as they leaned forward in their gravity chair. "We ran after our prey until they got tired and collapsed," Susan repeated. It's called persistence hunting. Early humans could run for hours, following animals until they overheated or exhausted themselves. The council chamber fell silent. Kralfax's tentacles had gone completely still, a sign of shock that Susan didn't recognize. You chased living creatures until their bodies failed. Vexthor's crystalline form had dulled to an almost gray color, not because you were faster, but because you could run longer. Susan nodded, pulling up some diagrams on the display screen. Humans have several advantages for long-distance running. We can sweat to cool down, we can breathe independently of our running rhythm, and we can carry water with us. The aliens exchanged alarmed looks. Mistral's gaseous form had condensed so much they were barely visible. And you still have these capabilities. Rutal's leaves trembled slightly. Of course, Susan said. Many humans still run marathons for fun. That's about 42 kilometers. The council members began talking all at once, their universal translators struggling to keep up. Susan waited patiently, not realizing she had just confirmed their worst fears about human endurance. Dr. Alan Baker, Earth's chief environmental scientist, walked in during the commotion. He carried data about Earth's various ecosystems, planning to explain how humans had adapted to live in so many different environments. "Is this a bad time?" he asked, seeing the agitated aliens. "Dr. Baker, perfect timing," Zixtel said, their voice strained. "Please explain how humans survive in what our records classify as a death world." Alan looked confused. "Death world? Earth? But it's perfect for life. Your planet has extreme temperature variations, high gravity, toxic atmospheres, dangerous radiation levels, and aggressive life forms," Kralfax listed, tentacles waving. "By galactic standards, Earth should be too hostile for intelligent life to evolve." Alan and Susan exchanged surprised looks. To them, Earth was just Earth. They had never thought of it as particularly dangerous. "Well," Alan began, pulling up his environmental data, "humans can survive in temperatures from about -50 to +50 degrees Celsius with proper equipment. Without special gear, we can handle maybe -10 to +45 degrees for short periods." The aliens' reaction to this simple statement was striking. Several of them moved back in their chairs, while others made gestures that their human hosts didn't recognize as signs of terror. "That range," Vexthor's voice crackled through the translator. "Most species can only tolerate a 5-degree variation." Susan's scientific curiosity kicked in. "Really? But how do they handle seasonal changes?" "Most inhabited worlds don't have seasons," Rutal explained, leaves shaking. "They are climate-controlled or naturally stable." Alan looked at his data and then back at the aliens. "So when we say humans live in the Sahara Desert and in Antarctica, you live in environments with a temperature difference of nearly 100 degrees, Zixtel finished, voluntarily. The meeting continued, with each new piece of information about Earth and human capabilities causing more distress among the alien observers. They learned that humans could eat a wide variety of foods, including some things that would be toxic to most species. They discovered that humans regularly survived injuries that would kill other species. "And you do all this on a planet with high gravity?" Mistral asked, their gaseous form barely holding together. "Earth's gravity is high," Susan asked, genuinely surprised. "Most civilized worlds have about half of Earth's gravity," Kralfax explained. "Your muscles and bones are incredibly dense by our standards." Alan checked his notes. "That explains why humans adapt so well to lower gravity, but struggle with higher gravity. We're used to living in conditions that would crush most species," Zixtel finished quietly. The revelations continued. The aliens learned that humans could survive with punctured lungs, could live with missing limbs, could recover from massive blood loss, and could adapt to almost any environment. "Your cities," Rutal noted, "you build them everywhere, in deserts, on mountains, in frozen wastelands." "Well, yeah," Alan said. "If we want to live somewhere, we figure out how to make it work." The council called for a break after that statement. The aliens needed time to process what they were learning. In their private chamber, they spoke in worried tones. "It's worse than we thought," Zixtel said. "Their entire planet is a survival horror by our standards, and they think it's normal. They chase prey until it dies of exhaustion," Kralfax added, "and they do similar runs for fun. They build cities in places that would kill us instantly," Mistral noted, "and they call it adapting. And now they're in space," Rugal said, "where they can reach other worlds. With their ability to survive almost anywhere," Vexthor finished. Meanwhile, Susan and Alan sat in the human break room, drinking coffee and discussing the aliens' reactions. "I don't understand why they're so worried," Susan said. "We're not hostile. We just want to learn and explore." Alan nodded, but something was bothering him. "Maybe that's what scares them. We see an impossible challenge and think, how can we overcome this? They see an impossible challenge and think this is impossible." Susan considered this. "So when we say we want to explore the galaxy, they hear that we want to go everywhere, survive everything, and adapt to anything," Alan finished. "And based on their reactions, maybe we're the only species that thinks that way." Neither of them realized just how right they were, or how much they're normal. Everyday human capabilities terrify the galactic community. To the aliens, humanity wasn't just unusual. They were almost supernatural in their ability to survive and adapt. The revelation was complete. Humans weren't just another species joining the galactic community. They were something entirely new, something that could survive conditions that would kill most species, and they did it all without realizing how extraordinary they were. The emergency session of the Galactic Council began at midnight Earth time. The massive meeting chamber on the moon base was filled with representatives from 50 different species. They had gathered to discuss one urgent topic: what to do about the humans. Dr. Alan Parker stood before them, ready to present humanity's achievements in space exploration. He didn't know that this presentation would help seal Earth's reputation as the most frightening planet in the known galaxy. In just 60 years, Alan began, humans went from our first powered flight to landing on the moon. 30 years after that, we had permanent space stations. Zixtel's blue skin had turned almost white. "Show us your current space exploration plans," they requested, their forehands tightly gripping their control panel. Alan proudly displayed images of planned Mars colonies, asteroid mining operations, and deep space missions. "We're looking at settling Mars within the next decade. After that, maybe the moons of Jupiter or Saturn. You plan to live on Mars?" Kralfax's tentacles curled in distress. "A planet with deadly radiation, toxic soil, and almost no atmosphere." "Well, yes," Alan said. "We'll need to make some changes to live there, but we've already figured out most of the solutions." The chamber erupted in worried murmurs. Vexthor's crystalline form pulsed with anxiety as they asked, "You intend to change the planet to suit your needs?" "That's what humans do," Alan explained, not realizing how terrifying this concept was to the aliens. "We adapt to our environment, or we adapt the environment to us." The council members began talking all at once. Their universal translators struggled to keep up with the flood of concerned conversations. Mistral floated forward, their gaseous form barely holding together. "Dr. Parker," they said, "please explain why humans want to explore deep space." Alan smiled. "Because it's there. Because we want to see what's out there. Learn new things, meet new species, face new challenges." "Face new challenges," Ruvel repeated, their leaves trembling. "You seek out challenges deliberately." "Of course," Alan replied. "How else would we learn and grow?" The council called for a brief recess after that statement. When they returned, Zixtal addressed the gathered representatives. "We have learned much about humans in recent weeks," they began. "They can survive conditions that would kill most species. They seek out challenges instead of avoiding them. They adapt to any environment. And now they want to explore the galaxy." Amanda Nash, Earth's diplomatic representative, stood up from her observer seat. Is that a problem? We come in peace. We want to learn and share knowledge. Krelfax spoke next, their tentacles moving in complex patterns. You say you come in peace, but you are built for war. Your bodies can survive terrible damage. You can chase prey until it dies of exhaustion. You live on a death world and call it home. But we don't want to hurt anyone, Amanda protested. Yes, we're tough, but that's just how we are. We use our strength to help others. The council members watched a video of human emergency responders running into burning buildings, of doctors working in disaster zones, of astronauts risking their lives to repair space stations. That's just it, Vex Thor said. You use your incredible abilities to help, to explore, to build. But what happens if someone threatens you? What happens if someone attacks Earth? The room fell silent. Everyone remembered humanity's history of warfare, how they became stronger after every conflict, how they turned their most destructive discoveries into tools for progress. We need to make a decision, Zixtal announced. The humans have asked to join the galactic community. They want to explore, to learn, to expand beyond their death world. Should we allow this? One by one, the council members voted. Some voted out of fear, others out of curiosity, and others out of hope. In the end, the decision was unanimous, but not what anyone expected. Earth will be classified as a restricted zone, Zixtal declared, not to keep humans contained, but to protect other species from attempting to harass or threaten humanity. Amanda looked confused. You're restricting Earth to protect others from us? Yes, Kralfax explained. Your species survived on a death world. You grew stronger from disasters that would destroy most civilizations. You adapt to any challenge. If anyone threatened Earth, they would learn why that is a terrible mistake. But we're peaceful, Amanda insisted. Yes, Mistral agreed. That's what makes you even more terrifying. You're peaceful not because you're weak, but because you choose to be. You're kind not because you have to be, but because you want to be. Alan finally understood. You're not really afraid of what we might do to you, he said slowly. You're afraid of what we could do if we had to. Precisely, Zixtal said. Your species treats deadly radiation as a minor inconvenience. You see toxic atmospheres as engineering challenges. You build cities in places that would kill most species instantly, and you do it all without realizing how incredible it is. The final entry was made in the Galactic database that day. It read, "The species from the third planet does not know fear. They do not know limitations. They survived on a death world by becoming stronger than death itself. They face the impossible with curiosity instead of terror. And that is why we fear them." As Amanda and Alan left the council chamber, they heard the aliens discussing plans to warn other species about Earth. Not because humans were dangerous, but because they were too brave, too tough, too adaptable. I still don't understand, Amanda said to Alan. We just want to explore and learn. Alan smiled. Maybe that's what scares them. We look at the deadliest places in the universe and think, I wonder what's out there. They look at Earth and think, how is anyone alive there? Back on Earth, life continued as normal. Humans kept exploring, adapting, and overcoming challenges, never realizing that the rest of the galaxy watched them with a mixture of terror and awe. To the humans, they were just being human. To everyone else, they were the scariest species in the known universe, not because they were evil, but because they were too good at surviving. And somewhere in the vast galactic database, Earth was marked with a new warning. Approach with caution. The creatures of this death world do not know they are invincible. Do not let them prove it to you.